The story of Rockstar's cancelled game Agent, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting stories of development hell. There is no set definition of what development hell looks like, but here are a few signs. If a game is announced and from the get-go there is very little information, that's not really a cause for concern, but if years pass from the initial announcement and there is still no information, you can pretty much assume that the game has probably entered development hell. But sometimes that's not the case, and companies are just very secretive about what they have planned. Nintendo is kind of notorious for this behavior. They love to keep people in the dark about what they're developing. At this point, they do it so much, I think Nintendo does it as a hobby. But this type of behavior leaves many people in the dark, and it lets speculation run wild. Usually, news outlets and fans reach two conclusions. One, they're purposely withholding information, or two, the project is in development hell. Development hell is a very common term in the video game industry, and there are a few red flags you can spot if a game is in development hell. These two red flags are lack of updates on the game's development and lack of information given when the game is formally announced. Most of the time, these two red flags need to be present at the same time because companies love withholding information, but when they give a lack of updates on the development cycle, that's when people need to start getting concerned. Nowadays, you can easily check up on any upcoming game's development, and if there are large gaps in time in between updates, you know that something may be wrong. The lack of information part is much harder to spot because most of the time game developers do that intentionally. Some games that check these boxes of being in development hell are games like Dead Island 2, Beyond Good and Evil 2, and Metroid Prime 4. These are all games that, as of this recording, are still in development hell. Dead Island 2 was announced all the way back at E3 2014, and it still hasn't gotten a release date. All we've gotten is a simple reveal trailer, a gameplay trailer that shows off the game's combat, and a unfulfilled release date of spring 2015 shown at the end of the gameplay trailer. If I had to guess, the developers probably had to go back and tweak the tone of Dead Island 2 a lot, because if you compare the tone of the Dead Island 1 trailers versus the tone of the Dead Island 2 trailers, they are two totally different tones. The Dead Island 1 trailers take themselves very seriously, and the Dead Island 2 trailers do the exact opposite and don't take themselves seriously at all. For a more drastic and more specific example, let's compare the first Dead Island 2 trailer to the first Dead Island 1 trailer. The tone for the Dead Island 1 trailer is filled with emotion, whereas the tone for the Dead Island 2 trailer is very lighthearted. If the Dead Island 2 trailers are representative of what the game will be like as a whole, I can see why they want to go back and try and adjust the game's tone to more closely match the tone of the first game, just for that tonal consistency. That's probably why we haven't gotten any new trailers. At the end of the day, these are just my wild speculations, so who knows what's going on with Dead Island 2. Beyond Good and Evil 2 was a game initially showed off at E3 2017 with a small trailer. On top of this, we got some interviews from the development team, and we got the creative director to walk us through a demo of the game. This was 14 years after the initial Beyond Good and Evil came out. After this reveal, we'd have to wait until E3 2018 to get any more information. At E3 2018, Ubisoft showed off more of the basic stuff that they showed off at E3 2017, with them showing us the game world and some very basic gameplay. Next, we'd have to wait until December of 2018 to get gameplay of the game's co-op. Lastly, on Halloween of 2019, we got an overview of the game's character designs and lore of the game. Because of the sheer amount of information between 2017 and 2019, you'd assume that development was moving along smoothly. But since 2019, we have gotten no new information on this game. Metroid Prime 4 was teased only once, and this was at E3 2017. At this reveal, all we got was a logo for the game and the news that it was in development. After this reveal, we got no information until January of 2019, where we got news that Metroid Prime 4's development was restarted. In my opinion, this shouldn't really be a cause for concern, because Nintendo is still working with Retro Studios, so it's not like there was a major change to the development team. If Nintendo had changed developers because the other developers didn't work out, that would be a little concerning. Even after all that, I still trust Retro Studios because they've already made 2 perfectly fine Metroid Prime games already. Up until this point, we have gotten no other news about Metroid Prime 4. So, after 5 years of supposedly being in development, we have not been shown or told anything about this game. So, in game development, things can be very secretive, and plans for games change drastically. So with this in mind, let's get back to the story of Agent. In 2007, Agent was unofficially teased. Then the game was formally unveiled at E3 2009. All the information that we got was some brief news about the setting of the game and the game's logo. The game would take place in the 1970s during the Cold War era and would focus on political assassinations and espionage. To some people, this sounded like LA Noire, which was known to be in development, but that was debunked by Rockstar co-founder Dan Houser. In 2011, then chairman of Rockstar Games, Strauss Zelnick, reiterated once again that Agent was in development. This same year, Ray Donahue, an environmental artist working on Agent, updated his resume with screenshots that seemed to be directly pulled from the game world of Agent. These screenshots were interiors of undisclosed locations in the game. These images would later be leaked on August 16th of 2011. Then, in 2012, we got an interview with then president of Sony Computer Entertainment, Jack Tretton, where he was yet again asked about Agent. Then, in 2013, he was asked yet again. Both times, he responded in relatively the same way, by saying that if they had any questions about Agent, they'd have to ask Rockstar. In 2013, Zelnick gave us some discouraging news by saying, "We haven't announced anything for that title," referring to Agent. So here's the issue. Up until this point, both Rockstar and PlayStation have both reiterated multiple times that they were working on Agent. But we've gotten no information about Agent officially from developers, which makes me think that they stopped working on Agent a long time ago. It was 2013. The next generation of consoles were just around the corner, and Agent was announced as a PS3 exclusive game, and there was no update to that status at all. There was no update on whether it would be coming to PS4 or even Xbox One. Because at this rate, there was no way that Agent was going to be coming to the PS3. It was way too late for that. On December 22nd of 2015, leaked images of Agent's game world were released. Because of the new wave of leaked images, the images that also leaked in 2011 resurfaced. Not much was made of these new images though, because all of them were just basic shots of the game world. All these images show is some concept art for some buildings and a world map, some isolated screenshots of buildings and roadways that I'm assuming would have made up a city, a snowy terrain with a flipped over car on the side of a road. This picture also shows a structure fire and an early character model. You can't see much detail, but the character model is there. Also an image of another snowy terrain in the mountains with a construction site on the side of a road. And in this image you can see even more character models. On November 19th of 2018, the United States Patent and Trademark Office declared the trademark of Agent to be abandoned. Essentially, this meant that Agent was dead in the water, and they were not looking to revisit this anytime soon. This would be the final nail in the coffin for Agent. On October 7th of 2021, Rockstar did a little bit of cleanup and finally removed Agent from the upcoming releases tab on the Rockstar website. In the end, Rockstar's Agent is a cancelled game that had a long stint in development hell. Not much was ever known about this game, aside from the setting and the knowledge that a few screenshots had leaked. But as it stands, there's not a lot to go off of. I wish we would have been able to see more of the game Agent, maybe more of what the game may have looked like, or maybe some in-development gameplay. So what exactly happened in Agent's development? Well, when Agent was announced back in 2009, Rockstar probably had many major projects in the works already. They were probably in the early stages of development for games like Red Dead Redemption, which would release in 2010. They were probably a decent way into development for LA Noire and Max Payne 3. LA Noire would come out in 2011, and Max Payne 3 would come out in 2012. On top of that, they were probably in the early stages of development for their biggest game yet, Grand Theft Auto 5, which would come out in 2013. So while Rockstar started development on yet another game, they still had 5 other games they were working on. So they probably let Agent go just because it had the least amount of development time behind it, and they wanted to focus on more important projects that already had hours of work sunk into them. So even though it's easy to think about what Agent could have been, I think Rockstar made the good decision and canceled the game. Rockstar just had too many projects going at this point, so it was inevitable that one of them would either get canceled or never leave the development cycle. Games get canceled and games linger in development hell, but at some point information does come out about these games. These games that I mentioned have at least gotten trailers. All of these games also got full-length articles detailing their development status. But from the very start, there was barely anything said about this game at all. From the beginning, all we got was a brief synopsis, and then for years, all we got were one-off comments about the game's development, until finally in 2011, we got some leaked images, and then 4 years after that, we got even more leaked images, and then 12 years after its announcement, the game was finally officially canceled. And that's why, in my opinion, Agent is one of the most infamous canceled games of all time.